In construction document sets, it's not uncommon to have long elevations or sections that cut through sites and help orient the viewer to the different details across a project site. These sections or elevations aren't precise construction details themselves in that they would explain every part or facet of the design, but they do begin to call out certain details within and across that section. For instance, the south elevation will call out the stair and rain garden bridge and show where it is in conjunction with other parts of the boardwalk. It'll call out using a typical detail callout and references detail 2 on sheet L11. On sheet L11, you'll see that the detail 2 further explains the materials, fasteners, and construction techniques associated with this particular part of the section. This tutorial is going to talk about a couple techniques for actually creating these sections in your construction documents. We'll look at a range of approaches that begin with hand-drawn sketches that are then integrated into AutoCAD, all the way to line work that is created entirely in AutoCAD and dimensioned and labeled digitally. In this particular drawing, we actually want to create a section or an elevation for this courtyard wall that connects from one building on the north side to a building on the south side. Also has a sidewalk that runs in between. Now, if we wanted to create this section entirely by hand, it would be helpful to take this particular part of the section, cut it out, rotate it, and place it in a different part of our drawing. This allows us to scale this particular piece. Right here we have it scaled to 1/2 inch equals a foot, and to print this out as a PDF and ultimately as a sheet of paper for us to use as the basis for our section elevation sketch. Once printed, we would know this is 1/2 inch equals a foot. We could begin to project vertical lines for the different parts of this section and begin to create the section entirely by hand. Now there is an option where we've actually created some of the baseline work for this section and projected it straight up. You can see here we've got the heights of the buildings right here, the ground plane, and an indicator of the concrete and aggregate underneath our sidewalk. We can also print this out at 1/2 inch equals a foot and draft our line work here. Once that line work is actually sketched, we can scan that line work in and bring that into AutoCAD as a JPEG. We'll do that here in Model Space. We'll come back to Model Space, we'll zoom up to our line work, we'll go to Insert, Raster Image Reference. We'll zoom out to our sketches and this JPEG right here and bring it into our drawing. I'm going to double click on the frame, fade the image, and we're going to use the Align tool to actually get this piece aligned in our drawing. We could use Scale and Scale by Reference, but the Align tool is the quickest way to actually get this to work. We're going to select the image, type Align. It'll ask us to specify the first point. I'm going to click this intersection down here and ask us to specify the first destination point. We'll put it right here. We'll then jump to the bottom right corner, select this piece, and send it right here. It'll ask us to specify a third point or continue. We're going to hit spacebar so that we continue, and it gives us the option to scale based on these alignment points. We're going to say Y for yes, and hit spacebar. Now at this point, it should put our sketch roughly in the right area. We might have to use the Align tool a couple times just to get it absolutely correct. We're also going to right click on the frame, draw order, and send it back. Now I can come back to my detail template and arrange this and put this into my drawing. Now you'll notice that when we plot and go to preview, that the frame for the image shows up. If we want to get rid of that, we'll simply type image frame, all one word, hit spacebar. It will ask us to enter a new value. The current value is 1, we can see in the command line here, and we'll enter a value of 0. What this does is it takes away the image frame. Now it does it for all the images in our drawing, and it makes it difficult sometimes to scale and reference these things. So often we like to have them on, but in this case, just so when we plot, that frame isn't there, we have the image frame turned off. Another way to execute this is to actually put it on the def points layer on another non-plot layer so that it doesn't plot the frame around the image. Now from here we could use the detail template to actually put in callouts for this particular detail. We'd scale up our tools using the 1/2 inch equals a foot scale factor. We'll try that over here. Grab our tools, We'll copy them over. We'll look at our 1/2 inch equals a foot, and the scale factor is 24. So we're going to zoom in right here and drop them below, scale them by 24. It allows us to maybe grab this call out, bring it over to our drawing. We can begin to size this up and actually create our column detail call out here. We double click on this, change the detail number, the sheet number, based on where this column detail is. We could use the same approach with this section cut line and this particular detail call out as well. We referenced the previous example. You can see how those might be inserted into your typical section elevations. Calling out, in this case, the stair and garden, rain garden bridge, the railing post, podium, bridge bench, and different features in the sections. Now another approach is to keep creating this line work, typically from the plan itself, just projecting these lines up, and you can create additional components. At some point you might feel like it's easier to draw certain things by hand, so you might come in and draw in pickets or details for brick, potentially trees in the background, and you can generate sort of a hybrid section approach to this, or you can take it all the way to an entirely digital approach, bringing in entourage like trees and people, and certainly the finer details. In any case, we'd want to follow the typical detail template, which allows us to create a detail frame. We'll do that here. We know that it's 1/2 inch equals a foot. We'll come to model space. We'll grab our detail frame right here, which is going to be 3 wide and 2 tall. Remember, our scale factor is 24, and we'll copy this frame up. Then scale by a scale factor of 24. And place the detail frame roughly where we want it. We'll come back to our detail page. We'll click inside. We can pan around to size this up, but always the easiest piece is going to be to type Z, END. This snaps to our endpoint. We'll snap to the endpoint of that frame. We'll zoom out. We'll type END again, and we'll snap to this endpoint. And if we use the scale factor in the detail template correctly, we'll notice that it fills the frame and it jumps back to 1/2 inch equals a foot as our scale here. We'll continue to complete the detail template title block by clicking on the attribute table, filling out all this information, adding in our labels to complete this particular section. Now there's a range of approaches for doing this, from some that are predominantly by hand to some that are entirely digital, as it is in this case. It's my belief that any of these approaches will work for these sections, mainly because they are just references to be able to call out other details in conjunction to, obviously, calling them out in your layout and materials plan.